Now, the UK Prime Minister David Cameron has again cautioned British voters against leaving the European Union. In a British TV debate with Leave campaigner Nigel Farage, Cameron insisted that such a move could destroy the British economy. A recent survey shows support for the country's departure has fallen across many EU states. The survey was carried out in 10 European countries. Let's take a closer look. Well, only 16% of the surveyed nations, including France, Greece and Spain, see the UK's potential departure as a good move. 70% of them think it would have a negative impact on the 28-member bloc. The multinational survey also reveals a 51% level of support for the EU, but 47% of them do not. And when it comes to how much power the EU has, 42% of those nations want some powers returned to national governments. 27% say things should remain as they are. And another 19% are in favour of transferring more powers to Brussels. Well, Sarah Morice has more on the debate from London. She joins us now. Sarah, it was Cameron against Farage then. Was there a winner in last night's debate?
No, I don't think there was a winner. If anything, really, it was a very lacklustre debate. The two men were not debating head-to-head in the traditional sense of a debate. They were separately on stage facing questions from a studio audience. Neither delivered a knockout blow. In fact, I think if you were watching last night, you probably finished watching a little bit more confused than you were before you started watching. But I think what did become very clear is that for the UK people, for the British people, this debate is not about the economy. And certainly the Prime Minister, who very much wants to stay in the EU, has tried to make it all about the economy. But a lot of questions from the studio audience last night were about migration and were about sovereignty. And these seem to be the two things that are really on the British public's mind. There's two camps when it comes to migration. Those who believe that there has been a flood of migration from the EU here to the UK and that the people from the EU are stealing British jobs and that they're putting a strain on things like the health system here in the UK. Then there's the other camp who staunchly believe that the migration is needed to prompt the economy to keep it going and keep it a little bit stronger. When it came to the question of sovereignty, there's a lot in Britain who believe that the EU has too much power when it comes to lawmaking, and they want Britain to sort of claw back some of that power, and the only way to do that would be to leave the EU. Now, the Prime Minister staunchly disagrees with this. He thinks they need to be in the EU to perhaps have some say in these decisions. Let's have a little listen to what the Prime Minister had to say.
We need to be in this organisation, fighting for British interests and for British jobs. Leaving is quitting. And I don't think we're quitters. I think we're fighters. We fight in these organisations for what we think is right.
So that's what Cameron had to say on the Remain side. What about Farage on the Brexit, the Leave side of things? What did he have to say?
Well, he was very clear that the migration was a huge issue, and he's a well-known campaigner and has been his lifelong political career has been about trying to get Britain out of the EU. So very much he did appear anti-migration in terms of EU migration and an open door policy. But he did also approach the question of the economy, because David Cameron has been at pains to say, you know, if Britain leaves, the economy will fall over. And Nigel Farage disagrees. Let's have a listen to what he thinks.
I think the Eurozone is a catastrophe. Just look at what they've done to Greece and those Mediterranean countries. The migrant crisis is now not just dividing countries, but dividing within countries, leading to a whole new brand of politics. The money's run out.
Sarah, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about, because there was a surge of people trying to register to vote as the deadline approached. It actually caused the website to crash, so people couldn't register. What's the fallout likely to be from that?
Well, this is probably a big problem, you would think, for those campaigning to remain in the EU. So yesterday, around 500,000 people tried to register to vote. The deadline was, in fact, last night. The day before that, around 250,000 people tried to register to vote. And what we know is that these people who are registering at the very last minute are young people. They're under the age of 35 in the most part. And those people, the polls say, are the ones who are likely to vote for Britain to remain in the EU. So those who are part of the Stay campaign today are feverishly campaigning to have that registration deadline extended, because they feel if there's even 10,000 people who want to vote but can't because they couldn't register, then that could affect the outcome of this referendum, which the polls are showing at the moment really is neck and neck between the Stay In campaign and the Leave campaign.
OK, a long way to go. Sarah, thank you very much.